So, welcome to a session on scenario-based interview questions on cloud security. And just to give you my introduction, team, my name is Krish. I'll be your instructor for this whole webinar session. And just to give you my background, I've been working in IT for the last 19 plus years on various domains. And since 2010, I am working in cloud computing, specifically in cloud security. So my primary job profile is I'm an enterprise cloud security architect and consultant who support businesses to design their cloud security architecture, cloud solutions, and to do the auditing, security assessment, defining policies for the cloud computing. And I do training for various platforms as well. And for more information, you can visit my LinkedIn profile. So welcome to the session. And today we'll first of all, go through our agenda. So already, we have done two videos on this interview preparation. If you can check my LinkedIn or if you can check InfoSecurity YouTube channel, you'll be able to see that we have already done two webinars on interview preparation. That videos are available on the different YouTube and LinkedIn, and that in that we have discussed about the key skills you need to prepare for a cloud security job role. What all, or how do you basically what skills is necessary for you to basically go for it. All these things is already we have discussed. So in this particular session we are focusing on discussing some simple questions which can be asked on the interview and how to answer the questions effectively. Okay, that would be the strategy we are going to discuss here. Okay, so let's get started, team. So in the agenda is basically we will discuss about the interview preparation strategy. Then we will discuss about the cloud interview or interview process for the cloud security, and what are the concepts you have to know for preparing for a cloud security interview, and some case studies and technical questions we will discuss, and you can ask your queries on that. So first of all, team, in the like I have discussed in the previous webinars and sessions, one major point which we have to keep in mind is that whenever we prepare for a cloud security interview, it's not like one single job role you are talking about here. That's the first point we have to keep in mind. Whenever we go for a cloud security interview, we are not talking about one single job role here. And in cloud computing itself, if you see that you can find some more than 100 plus job roles in the top market. Like for example, if you search in Google, if you search in Naukri or any kind of a job search platforms, you can see that you have more than 100 active profiles on the cloud computing, and it crosses 200 or 300 when basically specific to the companies, but generally speaking we have more than 100 type of job roles which are basically there in the cloud computing. And in cloud security itself, okay, in cloud security itself you have different job roles like cloud security architect, cloud security specialist, cloud compliance expert, cloud auditor, cloud security manager, cloud security consultant, cloud security operations persons. Like this, you have a lot of different job roles for different businesses. And whenever we basically go for any interview, not only specific to, whenever you basically go for any interview, there are few points we have to first of all keep in mind. Okay, whenever we talk about the word called as cloud computing, okay, so in the interviews, the first thing you have to keep in mind is that we always get three kind of questions in the interviews. One is basically what we call as a behavioral questions, one is a technical questions, and one is case studies. Now, how do you prepare for an interview and how do you answer it? First of all, I'll discuss about the questions part, then I'll discuss about how to prepare for that. So whenever you go for an interview, previously, if you talk about some 10 years before, okay, if you talk about some 10 years before, you will know that like let me show you here. Let's suppose that if before 10 years you will get a question like this, like if you go for an interview they will simply ask you what is security, what is Amazon S3, what is Azure blob containers, what is this or what is that. Most companies were asking those kind of questions and only they were thinking about certification plus some predefined set of questions. But after a point of time that these companies realize that if you simply just look into the list of certifications that person is having, definitely certification is very important for us, very important. So whenever we basically go for a interview, okay, it's not like nowadays, it's not like companies are not trying to simply think about or simply talk about the what we can say, the number of certifications you're having. More than certifications, now what companies look into is your real time problem solving skills. That's the first thing. Okay, and the way they are asking questions is basically going to be like based on their requirements and their scenarios. Already we have discussed about the JD, the job description, we have already discussed in our previous webinars. So how do you basically review a JD? out of that particular list of JD, how do you understand what the company needs? All these things we will definitely discuss. But before you go to any interview, the first thing which we have to keep in mind is that you can just review the company profile, what all technologies they use, what all things they expect. So if you prepare on that, but that's the first point we have to keep in mind. Okay, whenever you basically go for any interview, whenever you basically go for any interview, it's very important for us to basically understand the company profile, what technologies that companies are using, and all this kind of stuff. Okay, that's a very important point. The second most important point we are having is that whenever you go for an interview, see the key technologies they are using, even though you are not completely aware of the technologies. That's a very important word. Yeah, yes, Jennifer, we are going to do that. So whenever you're basically going for a cloud security interview, before we basically, like we see, just see what all things are there, or what all specific things are there on the company. Like for example, they will mention, so deep understanding of AWS cloud infrastructure, deep understanding of Google Cloud Platform, deep understanding of these technologies, awareness of serverless computing, awareness of containers. Like they will tell you the specific technologies they are using and the day-to-day operation requirements. So review their job description first and review their entire business profile first before you basically go to an interview. I'll give an example. Let's suppose that you are going to an interview on a, let's say, a insurance company. So when you basically go for an insurance company, when you go for a security job role or cloud security job role, the first point you have to keep in mind is that they have to handle a lot of data, they have to handle a lot of sensitive data. So they will definitely expect you to have a knowledge on a deep understanding on the security of data, how data should be handled, compliance requirements, the various regulations and standards like that. So always be prepared with the first thing is always about getting a deeper understanding of the company profile and what exactly is the technologies they are using. Now, on the interview, as I told you before, we have a three types of questions which can be coming for the interview. The first question is basically what we call as a behavioral kind of questions. What is a behavioral kind of questions, team? So when you say the word behavioral kind of questions, it means that now this is basically all about understanding your thought process. Like I'll give an example. They will simply ask you, tell us a situation that when you faced a technical challenge while you work in your previous company or your current company. So basically, whenever there was issue happened, how did you coordinate with the various team members? Like that's a common thing, right? So tell us a serious scenario you have faced, which you had faced an outage in your business operations, and how did, like this you will get many questions on that. That is basically what we call as a behavioral questions. So behavioral questions are basically talking about understanding your previous experiences, your how your thought process works, how you have handled your previous, or how you have handled various kind of scenarios specific to the cloud computing. And that is what we call as a behavioral kind of questions. The second kind of questions you're basically having is what we call as a technical questions. So what is a technical question, team? Now, let me give an example. That's a common thing. That's what there for a quite long time. That means that they are simply there to assess your technical knowledge and proficiency on various cloud platforms, security concepts, or services, and all these things. That's what we call as a technical questions. Like I'll give an example. It can be starting from a very simple question based on the job role to complex. Like for example, what do you mean by security group on AWS? What do you mean by scale set on Azure? What do you mean by DLP or DLP utilized? Or what is a DLP? How does the DLP work? How can it help? Or what is the difference between a network ACL and security group? What is the benefits and drawback of using containers or serverless? Or what is the benefit of implementing a multi-layer security protection? Like this, they are more simple technical questions to understand your technical knowledge and proficiency across various cloud platforms. So first kind of questions is all about getting your understanding of the process you follow, your thought process, your experiences, your situations handling ability, and all. And second set of questions is about measuring your skills. And last is basic. This kind of questions are basically coming on the last team most probably. That means that they will give you a scenario. Either they will give you a scenario which they are facing, or they will give you a scenario. It's kind of a hypothetical scenario or some kind of scenarios they will give you, and they want you to basically analyze the scenario and give them proper solutions for that. That's what we call as a case study in that. Now, Again, there are two means. I will explain all these things in detail how to answer that, but one point we have to keep in mind is that, team, whenever you are answering a question, okay, whenever you're answering question, first of all, you completely listen to them. Don't interrupt in the middle. Completely listen to them, what they're trying to ask or what they're trying to convey, and then start explaining the things. Okay, we can definitely explain based on various methodologies, and the most commonly used or proven methodology for answering a question is what we call as a star methodology. Okay, the common way of answering a question when you basically go for interviews is what we call as a star methodology. Star stands for situation, task, action, outcome, in result. Situation, task, action, result. So you have to answer your question, most especially the questions coming in the behavioral type or case studies, in this particular pattern: situation, task, action, result. I will give you how to do that, but understand that these are the three kind of questions you get when you basically go for a cloud security interview. Definitely you will get more questions, like you will get this, soft skills or those kind of stuff are there, but I'm not going to cover that as of now. So in the technical part, when talking about the technology, we have three types of questions: behavioral, technical, and case studies. Okay, so all these questions will be there in most of the interviews, and don't expect that these questions will only be in a, by word. It's not like, they will simply ask you a question and do something. They will sometimes give you a infrastructure to basically show them on. Like for example, I have seen that in recent interviews of many of my students. They have, like, some of the students had interviews on hybrid cloud. That means that they basically they have a on premises data center, and they had a cloud platform. The company had a cloud platform, so they created a mock scenario, and they wanted the candidate to show them how to configure a VPN, how to configure a particular traffic flow, how to configure encryption. Like this, they may ask you some particular scenarios like this, which they want to sometimes show on the actual platform. So expect all these things. Okay, the first question, as I told you, the first that is always talking about your situation handling ability. So I'm going to give you some key factors which can help us in handling, or key questions which can basically help you to understand how to answer these things. Okay, as I told you before, when you're answering a question, always try to follow the star methodology. The star methodology is a very important thing. For example, team, let's say I'll give you an example. If they ask you, describe a time when you responded to a critical security incident in cloud. Let's suppose that in your previous company you had a critical security incident on the cloud platform. Give us an answer for that. Now, when you get a question like that, team, can you guess what kind of question it is? Describe a time when you had to respond to a critical security incident on your cloud platform or cloud infra of your company. What kind of question is it? Is it a behavioral question or technical question or case
Case
study?
study.
Describe a situation where you have to respond to a critical security incident on the cloud platform. First of all, you clearly explain them. See, make sure that your answers will be in a proper time limit. Don't extend the story. So make a proper explanation of the situation. Just tell them, like, for example, let's say now our company has basically faced a serious security incident when there is a malicious user, or basically there is an attacker who was able to get access to our cloud infra and access our data. Okay, be clear with the situation. Like like I was actually, we are working in a company, and this is, we have a cloud platform. This is our cloud, like it can be AWS, or it can be Google Cloud Platform, or whatever it is. So there is an attacker, who was able to infiltrate into the particular AWS cloud or Azure infrastructure or Google infra of a company, and he was able to access sensitive data. This is the situation. The second is what we call as a task. What is a task? So task means the team, when you face a situation like this, okay, when you face a situation like this, task means that now what is your responsibility in that? What was your role in the particular incident? Like for example, this will be different if you're a cloud security professional. This will be different if you're a cloud security engineer. So be clear with the task. So you just clearly tell them, this was a situation we have faced, and on this particular situation, I was basically the lead cloud security engineer there, or I was basically the cloud security architect there. So now tell them that as a cloud security engineer of the company, I was responsible for immediately containing the breach and doing the proper process there. Like I was responsible for containing the breach or conducting a forensic investigation, or maybe ensuring our data was secure. So that was my responsibility. Okay, so first of all, tell them the situation, tell them what is your job role and what is the task you have to perform there. Now, in the action part, you have to mention what actions you have done. So this will completely vary according to the type of job role. Don't forget that, team. Whatever you're going to explain further is completely based on your job role. Like for example, let's say you are looking for a job role for a cloud security manager, it will be different. You are going for a pure technical job role, cloud security engineer or something like that, that's basically different. So here I am giving an example of a cloud security engineer, maybe AWS cloud engineer, GCP, Google Cloud Engineer, whatever it is. So what is action? So once I realized that this was a situation and we basically started the process as per the incident response plan in the company, I immediately isolated the compromised servers. You just tell them what you have done. I immediately isolated the compromised servers to prevent further data loss, and we basically collaborated with our proper incident response team members to analyze the log files and identify what was the reason for the breach. So there is a 2 points team, there is a 2 points in the action. So in the situation, I hope the situation is clear to all of you, right? A security breach happened, attacker was able to access the customer data. So in the particular action part, you have to mention two things. You have to talk about the incident response, you have to talk about the problem management. Team, what is the difference between incident response and problem management, or incident management, problem management? Incident management is all about what? Incident management is all about identifying the incident and immediately restoring the operation. Incident management is only focusing on stopping the incident from preventing further or some from spreading further, and to make sure we properly contain the issue and restore the operation. And problem management is all about identifying the reason for the compromise and fixing the root cause. So action must include both the things. So you can tell them that, okay, I have immediately isolated the compromised servers to prevent further data loss. And then I was having a proper collaboration with the incident response team members. And we have together, we have analyzed the log files and we identified the reason for the breach. And we implemented a new firewall rule, or we implemented some multi-factor authentication, or we implemented some kind of a monitoring, alerting, something to basically fix it. That's the action you have done. Now, what is the result? What is the result? So result is also very important. Many people, when you basically answer interview questions, most people don't tell them the result. Okay, telling the result is a very important thing, team. Now, what is it? So after we were able to do this, because we were able to immediately respond to the incident, we were able to contain the breach within let's say 4 to 5 hours, and we were able to minimize the data lost. We were able to make sure the customer data was not affected. Like the same way, if you tell them in a star methodology, the it will be very easy, or it will very much clear for the interviewer to assess your skills. That interviewer is seeing me for the first time. That guy don't know me, right? So even if I say even if I basically say anything, he assess me based on two things. One is my resume or CV, what he is having. Second is that the way I answer the questions. Maybe I'm a master of a particular technology, maybe I know everything about that, but if I'm not able to convey that, that would be a problem for sure. So it's a very important point, the way you answer a question. Okay, don't make a whole story and extend the time. That will basically make that guy also irritated. So I will always recommend, okay, I will always recommend that when you basically go for an interview, you be clear with the answers. Okay, you be clear with what you're saying, and don't try to don't like reduce the fillers. Now I am also using fillers, I know, but when you talk, try to reduce the using the fillers, and try to make the explanation more crisp and clear. Like I told you, right? So you have a scenario. Let me give you another scenario. Okay, let me give you another scenario. See, then I'll explain that once again. So tell me, team, how can we basically answer this in star methodology? So first of all, this is the question. Can you provide an example for a time when you proactively improve the security posture of a cloud environment? What is proactively improving? That means that we have a cloud infra in the company. So in the cloud infra in the company, you have identified that there is a vulnerability, there is a flaw in the particular cloud architecture, and you fixed it without something went wrong. How did you do that? Can you proactively explain the time when can you provide an example of a time when you proactively improved the security posture? Okay, now don't say it in a single word. That's the first rule. Means don't extend it as a whole story, or don't say the simple thing is that you following the star methodology. Okay, I'll give an example. So when I joined my previous company, and my initial job was to assess the existing cloud infrastructure. Just tell them like this: when I joined my previous company, my job role was to assess the cloud infrastructure, and I noticed that the company's cloud infrastructure was lacking comprehensive security controls, making it vulnerable to potential threats and vulnerabilities. Just tell them in a simple way: this is situation. Okay, and one more thing, team: never talk wrong about your company, or don't tell them the vulnerability specifically. Like for example, okay, in my previous company there was a bucket named this one. There was a particular named bucket, and they had a flow with the port number this open. Don't say it like that. Okay, don't basically reveal the details of the company in detail. Okay, that's not a good practice. Okay, so first thing is that situation is, how do you tell the situation? Star methodology. When I joined my previous company, I noticed that our cloud infrastructure was lacking many security controls, making it vulnerable to the potential threats. So what is the next thing? Task. So as per the responsibility came to me, my manager told us, or the company told me to basically develop a proper security framework and protect our cloud infrastructure, or my company told me to basically secure the cloud infrastructure proactively. And what action you have performed? So because of that, as my job role was as a cloud security engineer, first of all I conducted some risk assessments. I basically identified the vulnerability points, and I have conducted risk assessments. I was using the CIS benchmarks for it. Just tell them the frameworks you're using. I was using some CIS benchmarks for it, or maybe something. Just tell them something, or I was using this service for it. And based on that particular thing, after informing to the management, after getting the approval from the management, I implemented the range of security controls like encryption, access control, web application firewall, automated patch management. I have done all these controls, and thereby doing it, the next is result. Thereby doing it, we were able to reduce the security incident by reduced up to 40 percentage when compared to the last 6 months to 1 year. Is it clear? So I'll tell you once again, the situation you have to be clear. This was the situation we had. This is the task assigned to you as per the job role. This is the action you have performed, and what positive outcome you got from the efforts you have made. Okay, this you have to explain them clearly. But in many interviews you will get additional questions from this. Okay, how did you basically implement this without spiking the cost? How did you basically manage a scenario like this? You will get questions connected. That's completely fine, but definitely be prepared for that. Okay, this is basically an example I'm saying. Now team, the next thing is that, see, even there are some points we have to always keep in mind. Okay, I'm just talking a bit different from what I'm trying to say. See, what I'm trying to say is that, now let's suppose that whenever you talk about security, okay, whenever you talk about security solutions or security controls, one major point you have to keep in mind is that, first of all, we have to be clear with the requirements. If you are not clear with the requirements, you cannot go to the proper solution. Be specific, be clear with the requirements. Most importantly, existing architecture. What they have now for managing it. And again, the second most important thing is the costing part. Like for example, now I'll tell you, let's suppose that we have a business. Okay, we have a business, and we have a small business, like we have a small to mid scale business who basically have a revenue of about, let's say, 5,000 or maybe 5,000 to 10,000 US dollars per month. This is the particular, there is a company, we have we have a profit of around 5,000 to 10,000 US dollars per month, let's suppose. Okay, and for this company we have and it's not a critical business, it's just a normal business. Let's say it's a shopping site, it's an online platform, something like that. And they have some 10 servers on AWS or Azure. They have some 10 servers running on the cloud platform. They are facing regular DDoS attacks. This company is facing regular DDoS attacks. Okay, just because they are on AWS, can I simply tell them, okay, go for AWS Shield Advanced? Can I tell them this? So this company, they have 10 servers on cloud platform, and they are experiencing a lot of DDoS attacks. Just because they are having DDoS attacks, can I simply tell them, let's go for AWS Shield Advanced? By going for AWS Shield, It will be around average. You have to pay 3,500 US dollars per month, right? The company has to pay around 3,000 US 500 US dollars per month, right? The infra is, they have a very small infra. They are not a critical business like banking or healthcare, and plus, you know, the budgeting. So all these factors we have to consider, and based on it, we have to find some alternates. We have to find something for sure. Whatever it is, we have to find something for sure. Even though, we can discuss it later in the upcoming things, or we can discuss at the last point. But I'm trying to say that when you're trying to figure out a solution, that solution must be sensible based on the requirements. That must be aligning with the existing infrastructure. That must be within the costing. That must be within the budgeting of the company. There is a lot of factors we have to keep in mind while defining a solution. Because whenever you get a question in the interviews now, as companies are focusing more on assessing the candidate skills, definitely you will get questions like this connected. They will keep on connecting questions, and they will give you more and more and more scenarios, trust me. Okay, that's a very important thing. The second one we are having, the next question we are having is the team. So this we have already discussed. Okay, so this is basically so first we have discussed about this, like, we had identified a threat, and how did you mitigate it in the previous question. And second question we have discussed about how do you proactively improve. The third question, our company is transitioning to a multi-cloud environment. Our company is transitioning to a multi-cloud. That means they are using multiple cloud platforms. Like, they want to get the best of everything, so they are taking multiple cloud platforms. Explain your approach to maintaining a consistent and effective cloud security across different platforms. Now, whenever we say the word multi-cloud, okay, see, this is the reason why I'm saying that you must, whenever I mean, in my previous interviews also, I was when I was explaining about the cloud journey, how to build a career in cloud computing and all, many people were asking me, Krish, why should I learn about multiple cloud? Why should I basically be aware of all the cloud providers, the solutions and all? The answer is that, team, because nowadays many companies are almost like 70% companies in the cloud are using some kind of a multi-cloud architecture. The reason is because they want to get the best out of everything. So in that perspective, when a company is basically moving to the cloud platform, there are some common challenges they will face. The most common challenge, definitely yes, we can use a CASB, but again, the most common challenge is that interoperability and portability. Interoperability and portability. So let me give an example. So a few days back, I had a requirement for a company, and I will tell you what they have told us. So we have a AWS. Okay, we have a AWS, right? So in AWS, for threat detection, for threat intelligence or threat detection, we have a tool called as AWS Guard Duty. Okay, in AWS, we have a tool called as AWS Guard Duty, which was a complete threat detection, threat intelligence tool. It's a really beautiful tool, and it's improved a lot. Okay, I had one of my students got an interview for almost 30 minutes. The question was only from Guard Duty. Now, there is a Guard Duty. Now, for this particular tool called as Guard Duty, but it is not a complete SIM tool. I will say it's not a complete SIM tool. So for that company, what they were asking me is that, Krish, we are using Guard Duty for all our threat intelligence, but we want to integrate all the Guard Duty findings to a service called as Azure Sentinel SIM tool, right? So they want to basically integrate AWS solutions with Azure Sentinel and analyze the log files there. How can we basically accomplish this? It's a very smooth and very simple job, but I was just saying that this interoperability is a primary concern, which, if you ask me, Krish, what is the primary concern you have seen when you go for a multi-cloud architecture business, is that interoperability always. Okay. Now, means cross compatibility, means whether one thing can communicate to another and all. That's it. Okay. Vendor lock-in and other things are always there. Yeah, it's a simple thing, exactly. But again, what I'm trying to say is that this is an example. So now, in this particular thing, team, how do I handle it? So first thing is that in a technical question like this, it's not mandatory you have to basically explain the star methodology, because what happens that in technical question, they have already given us the situation. The scenario is already given. So there is no need of explaining the whole scenario. The scenario is already there. So now you can directly go to what? You can directly go to the action, because uh, scenario is clear, task is clear. How this task is clear? As a cloud security engineer in our company, how do you do it? As a cloud security architect in your in my company, how do you handle it? Now again, be clear. First of all, tell them that when talking about multi-cloud security, if you're not talking about specific tools in the cloud, if you're talking about multi-cloud, definitely first thing is that I will try to standardize the security policies in the company. I will try to standardize a more generic cloud security policies in the company. Like it's not something which is specific to one cloud platform. I will try to design a cloud security policy that applies consistently across all the cloud platforms. Then I will use specific tools, like for example, for I will classify the number kind of a tools we are having, like for example, vulnerability assessment tools, threat detection tools, SIM tools, compliance management tools. I will try to basically coordinate, or I will try to leverage the cloud agnostic security tools, and I will use these tools for basically having a proper centralized management. For example, let's say if I use a tool called as AWS Inspector, or let's say instead of this inspector, I may use something called as a Nessus. Using Nessus, I will be able to scan, or I will be able to scan for vulnerabilities across multiple cloud platforms. Or using AWS Security Hub, I will be able to get findings from something. Using Azure Sentinel, I'll be able to analyze log across multiple cloud platforms. Like the same way, we will first of all we have developed the policies. We will have developed the policies and apply it consistently across multiple cloud platforms. We'll use various security tools and automation for vulnerability scanning, threat detection, compliance management, and all. Then most importantly, for identity, as in the cloud platform, identity and access management is a key concern. As in the cloud platform, identity and access management is a key concern. I will definitely implement a centralized identity management. We will try to implement a centralized identity management. Okay, like managing users and permissions across different cloud platforms, and that must be a consistent access policies across different vendors. And finally, we will train the employees for their security best practices they have to follow, and those do's and don'ts. Like this, you have to explain this question in a very sensible way, but in that time they will again start asking you, okay, when you say you're going to have a centralized identity access management, what do you mean by that? Where do you place the active directory? How do you basically integrate them? What tools in AWS we can use that? What tools in Azure we can use that? Like this, you will get more questions on that. Okay, like this, when you answer a technical question, be clear with the question you're getting. Like for example, now if you simply get a question, let's suppose that we have some 100 servers in my AWS cloud infrastructure or Google cloud infrastructure. On this particular thing, how do you implement a multi-layer security, or how do you implement security? Tell them that you have to basically go for something called as a defense in depth approach. When talking about security, we have to implement a defense in depth approach. We have to basically figure out the various layers of controls we can apply, and apply the controls without affecting the performance. Like this, you have to answer the technical questions very clearly. So how can you answer this question? Trust me, team, when you go for an interview nowadays, what happens that even there are companies where they use or the people who interview you nowadays will try to make get the clear idea of your expertise in real time. So I would prefer, whatever technology you're going for an interview, please make sure you try to be having a good hands-on expertise on them. Like for example, now let's suppose if you're going for a AWS interview, don't try to memorize some concepts and basically try to explain them. That will definitely going to fail. So don't do that. Always try to do hands-on, because now the best part in cloud is that every cloud service provider give you something called as a either credits they will give you, or either free tier they will give you. That means you have option now. If the cloud providers are giving you free tiers, or if they are giving you that credits for using the cloud platform, then why can't you play with it? Just use the cloud platform. Do all the do the hands-on maximum before you basically start searching for a job. Because by simply memorizing questions, and like you go for a normal AWS exam or Azure exam, it doesn't work when you go for a real-time interview. Now you never get direct simple questions. You will get always the questions with the scenarios. For DDoS, I'll tell you. See, I want to have management controls. I want to have management controls. I want to have mitigation controls. No, no. See, what is the point of isolation? What is the point of isolation? Because isolation means there must be a compromise. There is no compromise happen. See, I'll give an example. I'll give an example. This is a server you're having. Okay, if an attacker was able to enter into the server, okay, using some malicious path, using some vulnerable points, okay, using some vulnerable points, if the attacker is able to enter the server and compromise your data or compromise your application or architecture, that is an attack. That's a kind of a, that's something where we have to isolate. But this is not a loophole. This is not a, this is an abuse, not a loophole. Means what? You have a server here, you have traffic coming from thousands of servers in the internet or hundreds of servers in the internet, which is hitting your open port 443 or whatever port number it is. Okay, how do I know that there is a DDoS attack happening? Definitely, I'll explain that. I'll explain that. In fact, I will show you some really interesting stuff as well. Don't worry. How do I know that there is a DDoS attack happening? I will definitely show you that. Okay, see this team, see this picture. This is an example for a company who is having a DDoS attack now affected. Means at this time there was no point of having the traffic like this. So in that company at this particular time, when there was no need of a traffic like this spike must be happening, because there is no, because it's a, let's say it's a night time. At that particular night in this particular company requirement, there was no need of a traffic like this. You see unusual traffic. You see your CPU utilization goes above a particular value. You see your network utilization going up. Multiple reasons like this, you may have, you may basically understand there is an attack happening, attack or kind of a unusual activity. I'll show you one more. I'll show you one more. Just trying to give you an example here. I'm not trying to explain what is a DDoS here. I'm just trying to give you some points. That's all. I hope I removed all the PII. See this team. An example like this, you see basically some spikes happening, unexpected spikes happening. Your server is going down. So as I told you before, what should I do with this? Thing is that there are two things. One is you can have a management methodology. One is you have a management. One is we have a mitigation. Okay. Now, when talking about DDoS, you should know about this. Okay. First thing you should know is that when talking about management methodology, management of DDoS, okay, these things can be your lifesaver. One is auto scaling. Auto scaling. I'll tell you how it works. Second thing is that load balancer, up to an extent, not completely, up to an extent. Third thing is that CDN, content delivery network. Okay, these are some initial things. So how does auto scaling help us? So for example, this is basically a server we are having. Okay, and we have set configured auto scaling there that whenever the CPU utilization goes beyond 90 percentage or maybe 80 percentage for a particular amount of time, do auto scaling. We have configured the rule there. So what happens, team? Whenever there is a attack happen to the server, whenever there is a DOS attack or DDoS attack happen to the server, the traffic will basically spike, right? The traffic will basically spike. And what will happen, team? When the traffic spikes, okay, when the traffic spikes, when the traffic spikes, it will automatically create one more server. So now this is basically distributed. Again, if it spikes, it will distribute. So like this, the benefit is that it will keep on, spreading the traffic, thereby giving you time to respond. Is this a solution? Is this a solution? No, this is not a solution. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I want to maintain my availability for my consumers. This is not a solution. This is a management thing. So by the time by the time you once you realize this, you can simply respond to this particular attack by this time. This is not a proper thing. Okay, this is not a proper methodology. Okay, point number one. Point number two is that the reason I'm saying this is not a good idea, because this can increase the cost a huge. This can increase the cost in a very huge manner. So basically that's a problem. The second thing can be load balancer. If you have multiple servers, it can balance the load. But again, that I don't recommend as a methodology. This is also good. CDN. What is the benefit? whenever we have a traffic coming to our servers, it won't directly hit our servers, right? These traffics directly won't hit our servers. These traffic will only hit what? Only hit the cloud front or CDN edge locations. So because it is not directly affecting our infrastructure, it will only affect our edge locations. What is the benefit there, team? What is the benefit there? It basically again spread the attack and the source will remain unaffected. But all these things can increase the cost, and again, means that's a mitigation part. I'm talking about generic management now. When talking about generic management, this can help us to manage, but again it will increase the cost, but we can have availability for a few minutes without getting downtime. How to mitigate it, how to fix it, what is a fix for it? Again, there is a lot of tools which we have for mitigating it. For example, we have DDoS specific tools like AWS WAF, sorry, AWS Shield, my mistake, AWS Shield, Azure, Azure DDoS protection. We have different tools are there. Also, we have web application firewalls which can have predefined those rules are there. We can define the rules, like what we can say. We can have rules like this. What is the name of it? Bot control, traffic limiting. Okay, we can have basically rules for traffic limiting, or we can basically have rules for uh, for a from particular set of servers. It must, the traffic must not be basically more than a particular percentage. Like this we can basically manage it. Like this we can put the rules. So basically the web application firewall, DDoS protection tools, etc., is a mitigation methodology. Okay, like use web application firewall, AWS Shield, sorry, AWS WAF, or all these things can be used. And if you basically want to go for application, you can use an application rate limiting, API security tools. You can basically filter it based on security headers. There's a lot of things we can do that. So whenever you get a question like this, okay, they will start asking you questions and they will dig deeper on these things. Okay, now you said WAF. They will ask you, after you say the word WAF, they will ask you, you said WAF can be used for protecting against DDoS attack or DOS attack. What controls you will use in the WAF? Tell them, in WAF I can basically use rate limiting. I can basically use the rate limiting rules. I can use something called as a bot control. I can basically put security header filtration. Like this you can basically tell them the scenarios. But for all these things, play with this, try it out. You are a cloud security architect working for a company that recently migrated to the cloud platform. During a routine security review, you discovered that security group in the server has overly permissive inbound rules. These rules allow access to DB server from wider range of IP addresses than necessary, potentially exposing sensitive data to unauthorized access. Okay, how will you address the situation and ensure the security of the database server in the cloud environment? See, I'm not talking about any course here, Suresh. I'm just talking about the scenarios actually. I'm just giving so whatever you're learning like that, just giving, yeah. Okay, let me tell you one thing. If you are trying to simply answer, I will restrict the security group. If you're for this scenario based question, if you try to simply answer that, I will restrict the security group, then they will understand that technical thing. No, if you say whatever it is, if you say you will limit the IP range, you will restrict the traffic, if you say something like that, they will understand that you are good in technology but you're bad in collaboration. You will be good in technology, you're bad in collaboration. How? So how do you know that this is the only IP must be allowed? Are you completely aware of the application architecture? Are you master in everything? No, right? So when answering this question, okay, when answering this question, don't try to simply say you will block something, you will do something there. But before that, immediately one thing you have to tell them is that, okay, identify which resource is affected. So you basically go to the AWS. If it's AWS, go to the AWS cloud platform. It's Azure, it's NSG. Go to that and see which particular security group, which particular network security group or security group is basically affected, and see what is the serious impact which can happen if this particular thing, if it was compromised. Before you restrict the access, collaborate. Collaborate with the proper, let's say, development team or whichever team it is. Collaborate with the application team to understand what is the actual access requirements. Before you block it, before you put a port number or row number there, immediately talk to them. there's no attack now. As of now, there is no attack. It's a vulnerable thing. So immediately talk to the application team or the development team and understand what is the access required. They will tell you, okay, the only access we need is that from the application server to the DB server, like this. Just they will tell you. So understand what is the actual legitimate access requirements for the DB server, and then based on the particular inputs you got, then you say, okay, I will now restrict the security group rules to allow access only from the authorized access. Then you identified this. You identified this. Even though it's solved, it's sorted. You report it as an incident. Basically, if there is something you feel there can be something went wrong, something suspicious, you can report it as an incident. Collaborate with the team members and the other stakeholders to about this particular misconfiguration you have figured out, and see if there is any further things like this, and tell them to basically tell them to basically implement security best practices, or audit or assess, do automation. Just trying to explain you this. So always keep in mind, team, when you basically go for a cloud platform, when you're answering question, your question, I'm not trying to explain this question here. I'm trying to explain you, when you answer a question, they will assess these skills. One is your understanding of technology, your problem solving ability, your mindset, your collaboration with the team. That's the most important thing, because see, you're a cloud security architect. What is the point? You're not working alone. You have a lot of people around you: developers, testers, security team, SOC team, management. You have a lot of guys there. So you have to basically collaborate with the team members or the specific stakeholders for the particular scenario, and then you go to a solution. Because now, simply, let's say you figure out that there is a user got compromised. Without asking someone, if you simply go and delete the user, what will happen? It may impact the production. It may sometimes make the entire thing go down. So be careful when you're answering the question. So first of all, clearly listen, actively listen to the question they are giving you and understand the details. Before you answer the question, if you feel that the question is not clear to you, ask the clarifying things. Okay, you said there's an issue happened. Is it for this? Like, just clearly ask them what is the, if you need some clarity, you can ask them counter questions after that. And then start explain the scenario. But when you're explaining, focus on your understanding. How do you handle the situation? How do you collaborate? Plus your technical knowledge is the way you can answer a question. And before you go to any interview, as I told you before, you have to always make sure you have to review the company. Means if I go for interview, I will do that for sure. And even when people ask me for some inputs, I always tell them that you first of all review the architecture. You first of all review the company's requirements, and first you customize your resume according to that. Okay, either CV or resume, whatever it is, based on experience. But if it's a resume or CV, whatever it is, you customize it as per the experience requirements. Means don't lie things, be clear. Then on the job role, like they will tell you what is like. I will give you I'll show you an example. This is from my previous webinar. I'll show you an example. See, not AWS, this one. I'll show you another one. Yeah, AWS security. This is a job role for our company. So what happens is that, see, now they are clearly saying that this is basically what we have to understand. This is basically what we have to understand. This is basically be your responsibilities. Before you go to the interview, understand these things in detail. Okay, these things in detail. Plus, make sure that you basically, if possible, try it on the console, because now you may have learned about this on, let's say, this month, July, and your interview is on September. From July to September, there can be a lot of things changed. There can be a lot of new options added. A lot of things changed. So just review the console and see what changed. Okay, all these things are very important before you go for an interview. Okay, that's it. And it's completely fine if you don't know something, like they have given you a question, and if you're not able to, anyway, you cannot not able to connect that. You tried maximum, but you're not able to connect the answers anyway. You're not aware of the particular concept. Tell them, I have not worked on this, even though I was just having an overview knowledge which you can explain them, but you're not aware of the concept in detail. Just tell them clearly. Be clear with the things you're having. Don't waste their time or your time as well. Okay, that's it. And That's the most important things we have to keep in mind, team, and be clear with the kind of questions they are asking you, and just try to answer in the way I told you, right? And last 2 points, team: certifications. Now many people ask me, Krish, is it required? Do we have to basically get certified? Yes. Even though it's not recommended that you have to go through a lot of certifications, like many people still have a belief that I have seen recently also, if you have some thousand certifications, if you showcase all your skills in a resume, you'll get job more easily. Trust me, that will make you easily filtered out from the interview. You will not be able to get a chance for a job. The reason is because when a person, you see, if there's a person having a thousands of certifications and all, and you put everything in your resume, that means that this guy is not a master of anything. He's just trying to jump into each things that will basically make the interviewers get distracted. So be specific with the interview and jobs you're looking for, and get certifications specific to that. Don't go for everything, like you don't have to go to every certification possible in the market. Just specific to the things, and get the things which is necessary only. Okay. If you have any queries regarding this, or if you have any further questions on certifications or which track to follow, feel free. You can contact me on LinkedIn, and I will definitely help you with the process for sure. Don't worry. Okay, that's completely fine. Then the next thing is that last thing. Whenever you go for preparing a CV, okay, like always use the proper standardized formats. If you see InfoSecond YouTube channel, also you will find multiple videos on resume preparation or those kind of things which you can use for preparing the resume and CV as well. Okay, that's it.